Yeah, you've been to a couple of live things, haven't you? You travelled an enormous. Boston. You went to Boston, didn't you?
Yeah, 11-hour drive down to
So
Boston.
I want to hear about that as well, because you had some trouble. You had some trouble at the border.
Yeah. I got the. Well, it's funny because I was nervous because I brought LSD with me.
Oh, right.
So I was committing a felony. And I don't know what it was about the moment, but I've crossed the border many times for concerts, and the majority of the time it goes smoothly. Coming home is usually the problem. Coming back to Canada, the Canadian border agents are usually ruthless, but the Americans are usually quite friendly. So this was the opposite of my typical experience, but that's not the first time this has happened though. So I got to the border, and they always ask you a shit ton of questions, like, how long are you coming for work? You coming for pleasure? How long are you going to be there? Where are you staying? And I guess if any of your answers sound suspicious, they pull you over and ask you more questions and grill you, right? So I said, I'm driving to Boston to see a concert. He's like, that's quite a drive to see a concert. I'm like, well, it's the closest for me from Nova Scotia. And he said, so you going by yourself? And I said, no, I'm meeting a friend. He's like, where's your friend from? I said, he's from Ontario. And he's like, that's strange that you'd be meeting someone that lives 2,000 kilometers away from you at a concert that's another 2,000 kilometers away, kind of thing. And so he didn't buy that, I don't think, at first, or maybe he did. I really don't know. But he asked me, like, I was there for like 10 minutes answering pretty much every question, like, the name of my child, where I went to school. Like, it was getting really heavy. Have I ever been arrested? And I have been arrested. And he's like, well, you can't come to the US if you're a criminal. And I said, well, I was never charged with anything. I was falsely arrested,
Yeah.
So I was hanging, it was a marijuana thing. I was hanging out with some kids, some friends, and we all got arrested for having marijuana, but I didn't have any marijuana on me. So I wasn't charged with anything, but I was honest about it because I don't know what's in their computer. Right. I don't want to, and apparently if you lie, and if you lie at the border, especially they can block you from ever coming back. You're just done. You can't come to the US anymore. Right. So I was being honest with them, and they made me pull over. And they blocked my car in with like these road chucks things, so you can't back up or go forward. And they took my passport, and they went to the office with this passport. They said, "Come on in." And then two agents started tearing my car apart, going through my suitcase and everything in my trunk. And I'm sitting there going like, "Man, there better not be a roach in there somewhere," because I didn't even. I used to go and like detail my car before I traveled in case something like that happened, right? Because it wasn't, I don't anymore, but. It wasn't uncommon for me to smoke marijuana in my car, anywhere,
Yeah.
But so I'm thinking like, I don't know, there could be a roach in there. I haven't cleaned my car out in ages, I don't know. So I was freaking out about that. Plus I had like 10 hits of acid in my wallet. Right. So
that was in your wallet.
Yeah. And they took my wallet with my passport. They just, and they put it right on the desk in this little bucket. Right. And the agent was sitting beside my wallet for like half an hour. I'm I'm waiting for it to start going through my wallet. And I was just like, so I'm sweating. I'm looking like I was just staring at the floor, going like, this is.
I can just see this in a crime drama, where the camera keeps going back to the wallet sitting there, and then back to the suspect, and then to the agent, and it just keeps going. And the audience is it going to see the wallet? Is it going to see the wallet? So you didn't think before you went to hide it in your shoe or something, or something like that.
Well. So the way I kind of with the LSD stuff is I almost always have it in my wallet. For the last since I was like in college, I used to keep like a little baggie with at least 3 or 4 hits of acid in it, and I called it my emergency stash. Right. So just in case you happen to into a moment where LSD would be a perfect accompaniment to whatever's happening. Right.
In case you're kidnapped by aliens and you just have to get into the appropriate mood, that sort of thing.
Well, that too, actually. Not just aliens, but like I even imagine like being kidnapped by, say, a customer. Because like there's stories where plumbers and electricians get kidnapped by wealthy customers and forced to fix their house for free. and
is that a thing? That's not a thing, is it?
I've heard about it at least twice where it's happened.
Really?
Yeah.
So your response to that is to carry some spare acid with you. That's your.
Well, yeah.
Now that would be a great film as well.
Exactly.
I think we're writing a movie here. This is great.
I think you might be right. But so that's been the thing, because in my mind I'm thinking like, because like I don't think you've ever experimented with LSD, or if you, I don't know if you have or not.
I have not. No, I have not. I've thought about it many times.
But LSD has this like sort of this effect that makes you feel sort of like invincible for a bit, and you feel very confident, right? There's just like, you know, and so I imagine myself, like I picture myself being like in someone's basement, you know, and going like, and trying to have the wits about me, and then like getting a couple of hits of acid in me, and then having like this like superhuman sort of perception where I'd be able to like kick down a wall or something, you know, or bust out a window where I normally wouldn't be able to.
So your feeling on it is that it gives you like a kind of a superpower sort of for a little bit, which would get you out of a jam. Yes, I get that. That's a great motivation for a character who's been kidnapped by a wealthy guy. Yeah, this is a great movie we're writing here. We just need a decent ending, and we're sorted.
Okay, there we go. But so I was just like the crime drama. I'm thinking to myself, don't look at the wallet. Don't look at the wallet. The wallet's not important.
And the more you're thinking it, the worse it gets.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You know? So they went through everything, and the only thing I got shit about was that my wife made me a salad before I left, and there was tomatoes in it, and apparently tomatoes aren't okay to bring across the border.
Yeah.
Which I thought was funny because the tomatoes were grown in California, right? So they were.
Honestly, officer, I'm just taking them home.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Oh God, the world is so fucking stupid sometimes. It really is.
Well, exactly. And the other funny thing is, if I had marijuana on me, they would have busted me, even though marijuana is legal in Canada and the state I was going into. But
oh no,
it's hilarious.
God. Oh, it's hilarious.
But because marijuana is legal in Boston, you know, I didn't bother bringing anything, and my buddy assured me, he's like, first thing I do, because he was going to be there before me, he's like, the first thing I'm doing is finding some marijuana, and then we'll meet up, and we did. And side story, when we come back to this, actually, I've quit smoking marijuana again, but we'll talk about that after the trip to Boston.
I'll take a note of that one. I want to hear about that one as well.
But yeah, so they didn't destroy my car, thankfully. Like sometimes they'll rip seats out, rip out fabric, and, you know, mutilate the inside of your car because they suspect they're looking for something that shouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. But after I guess they realized that I'm really just going to a concert, you know, to meet up my buddy, you know, down in Boston. They put all my stuff back in the car. They left everything like inside out, like my suitcase was everywhere and all that stuff.
Really?
You know? Yeah, and I think they didn't like the fact my drone was in the trunk because I was hoping to take some drone photography along the way, you know. So they're going like, you know, do you have a license to fly that thing? And I'm like, well, it's under 250 grams. I don't need a license. And, you know, and they're like, you can't fly it near an airport. I'm like, I know. I don't plan on breaking any laws. I'm coming to see a concert.
Wow.
But that it all smoothed over, and I got in the car and off I went. And once I got across the border, it was smooth sailing. Like everything I dealt with was very friendly, and it's always a reminder how much I like the U.S. Because I know that I think the world perception of the U.S. is that they're a bunch of bull-headed morons, but they're very sophisticated, very friendly people. Mm-hmm. And it makes me, in Canada, we tell ourselves we're the friendly country of the world, we're the nice people. But when I go down to the U.S., I realize that we're just, you know, we're the weirdos, not them. They're a wonderful country. At least my experience down there has always been wonderful. And this was another example of that.
Yeah.
But continued to drove right down to Boston, got there with plenty hours to spare, and I'm out of my sorts, right? Because I haven't been to a concert in like 5 years.
Right,
you know, and
of course, yeah.
And it was, and I've, you know, now I'm a dad, and I have like baby brain. Like I just feel scattered. I'm not used to having, like I'm used to having everything in its place, but nothing has its place anymore. So I kept like putting things in the wrong pockets and forgetting things in the car. And we get checked into the hotel, and we bring my car to a parking lot, and we're getting ready to leave, and we're like 2 blocks away from the parking lot, and I realize my wallet's not in my pocket. And I'm like, oh my God. 'Cause I remember I had my wallet, because I remember I took the parking pass and put it in the wallet. I realized, I'm like in my head, I'm like, the last time I saw my wallet was on top of the car.
Right.
So I go sprinting back to the parking lot, and my wallet's sitting there on top of my car.
Oh God!
You know, like,
wow, that was lucky. Wow.
Yeah. All my ID, except for my passport, all my money, you know, all my credit cards,
wow.
my LSD, LSD's in the wallet, right?
That's the most important thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my buddy Adam's going like, "What's going on with you? You're the guy that doesn't lose anything. What the hell is happening here?" You know? So it was Nothing went weird after that, though. We got checked into the hotel, but we got our stuff back to the hotel, and everything was smooth. We went got some lunch, walked around Boston, and
what is Boston? What is Boston like these days?
Boston's a beautiful city,
but does it have the homeless sort of drug problem thing that we've seen a lot of?
I saw a little bit of. We went walking through kind of a darker part of town one night, and we saw a couple of people sleeping in their cars, you know. And I don't know if that's because they're homeless or because they're just, their wife was being mean that night. I have no idea. But I didn't see any tents. I didn't see any like encampments inside of Boston. So I don't know if it's because it's just there's not a lot of room in Boston to do that kind of stuff, because it's like a really old city for North America.
Right.
And so there's so I'm walking around these old cobblestone streets that are all, nothing's flat, nothing's even, everything you can tell is moved around so much. Right. So if I was sleeping outside, that's not where I would do it,
Yeah.
So I imagine, I don't know if they have the same homeless problem that I'm seeing in most of the Canadian major cities and like places like Chicago and Los Angeles and everything,
right.
But the city was very clean, and I was really kind of taken back by the architecture, because it's a mix of old world and new world architecture there, right? Because it's one of the first North American cities, right? So a lot of the Europeans that built that city were trying to make it look like a European city.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures of it just now, because I don't know Boston aside from things like Cheers and all that kind of stuff. So I'm looking. Yeah, I can see there's a typical sort of North American skyline there with skyscrapers, but there's also little cobbled streets with brick buildings. Yeah, and that looks very European. Yeah, there's a wonderful picture there. What is that of? I don't know what it is. It's a brick. Looks like a brick church or something like that, surrounded by skyscrapers. Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on, and
yeah. I can see that.
And we spent like because the one side effect of LSD, especially for me, is I can't sleep.
Oh, right.
Usually if I take it after noon, I don't sleep that night usually. And my friend had no problem. He was. He decided to go to sleep, and half an hour later was snoring, and I'd laid there in the hotel all night listening to him snore. But
oh dear.
But I was fine. But I remember before he went to sleep though, we spent a good hour looking out the window of our hotel room, and he would just be like, look at that building, and we stare at a building. You talk about why he liked it, and like me and this guy are good friends. We don't hang around each other too often. Like we spend most of our time on the phone together. And that's always been that way, even when we were kids. Like even though we live close to each other, we wouldn't see each other that often. And we were still finding things out about each other, right? Like I didn't realize how much he loves cities. Like he's like obsessed with architecture and city layouts,
right?
Which to me, like the farther away from the city I am, the happier I am. Like any city,